There is something uncanny about the Land of Shadow. It's heavy with decay, but also with remembrance, as though the very ground exhales the last words of those lost to its blackened soil. The sun never truly rises here. It simply flickers behind a permanent eclipse, stretching the shadows long and thin, as if they are still clinging to some memory of the light. When I first set foot upon this forgotten continent, I was met with ghostly spirit stones and the distant shriek of grave birds, those carrion sentinels lurking all across the land as if drawn by death. In the lands between, death has been banished. But here in the realm of shadow, it's not just haunts that are prominent, revered, and no longer cast aside. Death too seems to be exposed, featured. From the mausoleums which don't wander but rest, to the colossal stone coffins that sail to the place where all manners of death drift. Death here holds memory, and the truth is being revealed by the land itself. Could what Marika cast away have gathered here in silence until that silence learned to speak? And if so, is the realm of shadow merely forgotten ground? Or is it the echo of a death that dreamed of waking? A death that never truly finished dying? I cannot say for certain, but among the shattered roots of the Erdtree, even death seems exhausted by its burden. Perhaps, here, in the land of shadow, we walk not simply through the residue of endings, but through the dreams of death itself, dreams that may yet remember how to wake. Before the Erdtree's ascendancy and the Age of Gold that followed, death was part of a natural cycle. We learn this from Fia, who wishes to return destined death. Ranni did not introduce death by murdering Godwyn the Golden. Godwyn's strange soulless demise feels less like a beginning and more like an anomaly the world never ceased trying to correct. His body rotted beneath the Erdtree while his spirit lingered in restless half-life, and from this wound, death roots spread. Is it possible, then, that in traveling to the realm of shadow, we enter a place haunted by the accumulation of all the deaths the world tried to forget? The spectral remains drifting through its fields seem to be waiting. For what? I'm unsure. Redemption, perhaps? Recognition? Or maybe something deeper, something the world itself can't put to rest. Ranni's theft did not so much introduce death as cast a harsh light on the foundation Marika sought to bury. Was the land of shadow her blueprint for the lands between? What happened there that she wants us to forget? Godwyn's death in life became a festering wound, proof that death can be denied, but never truly excised. In the shadow of the Erdtree, displacement becomes tangible. The land is heavy with death's memory and thick with spirits half submerged in lingering dusk, all drawn toward the withered Erdtree as if moths to a flame that once promised salvation. I'm left questioning, does death here have order anymore? Or has it become a kingdom of confusion, a place where endings gather and dream restlessly of waking? Is the land of shadow the culmination of all that was cast out? I cannot say, but the shadows are long, and the answers are never simple. Hey y'all, in this video I'm going to be talking about death. Not so much an overview of death for the entire game, but more so a focus on death in the shadow of the Erdtree. Yankee selected this topic, and speaking of, if you want to pick a topic for me to cover and build theories on, please leave your suggestions in the comments. I'm in this very exciting place in the game where I've played over 200 hours, so I know a little but not a lot, and that has allowed me to speculate on a number of topics before the answers are revealed. So today we're going to be talking about death and its connection to the furnace golems, the grave birds, and the colossal stone coffins of the realm of shadow. I'd first like to talk about the furnace golems. To me, they represent mechanical death, and we're going to look at some of the items I found related to them. The furnace golems are like these great walking pyres that tower over everything. They do move, but they don't seem like they live and breathe. They look made of metal, and also the furnace visage looks very much like something that was smelted. So I think they're more of a weapon, which brings up the question, who made them? So let's get into some item descriptions. The furnace visage, a smaller imitation of the furnace golem's visage. A stone mask surrounded by curled horns, depicting the fell god of fire that haunts the sages of the Hornset. The hefty furnace pot, imbrued with a hex of the furnace, throw at an enemy to create a whirlwind of flame. The furnace fire burns away both body and soul. When impurity is thus expunged, one calls it a cleansing. So, death is synonymous with purification. The fell god of fire, could that be the frenzied flame? It's like a destructive cleansing. It's interesting because in order to kill those who live in death, like the skeletons, you have to stop them from reanimating by double tapping them. In a sense, that's what the furnaces are doing by burning both the body and the soul, so they can't return in spirit either. There is a message at the suppressing pillar, the very center of the lands between. All manners of death wash up here, only to be suppressed. It feels like the suppressing pillar is the drain of the world, where all the unwanted things, like death, are pulled in and suppressed. I'm not really certain where the realm of shadow is in relation to the lands between, so this might sound a bit ridiculous, but the lands between could mean that something is above and below. And we already have an underneath to the lands between, but the suppressing pillar is in the center of the lands between. The best way I can describe what I'm thinking would be the suppressing pillar somehow connects the two worlds, and death drains into the realm of shadow from the pillar. Either that, or it's sucked into the realm from below, like some sort of spiritual funnel. And perhaps Furnace Golem's role is to burn the runoff of death. The revered spirit ash of those who came before, infused with the potency of spirituality, acquired from the corpses of the Haunset, the other objects that ritually decorate townships and villages across the realm of shadow. Consume these at sites of grace to bolster your spirit ash blessing. The revered spirit ash blessing bolsters both the summoned spirits and the spectral steed's abilities to deal and negate damage, but has no influence outside the realm of shadow. The withered corpses were called tutelary deities, and the revered spirit ash was said to quietly accumulate in the palms of their hands. It kind of shows that death was used for utility in the realm of shadow. Ashes of the dead to be used for power. What's interesting is that in the lands between, death has been banished, but the realm of shadow seems to in turn use and sometimes honor that which Marika has decided should be scorned, like the horns. I no longer have this item in my inventory, so I had to go back to my previous episodes to look at it, but I'm going to put a clip of it in here. Deathroot, a sauce that gives rise to those who live in death. The beast clergyman, found at the bestial sanctum in the distant east, collects and devours these roots. On the night of the dire plot, the stolen rune of death enabled the first death of a demigod. Later, the rune of death spread across the lands between, through the underground roots of the great tree, sprouting in the form of Deathroot. The Prince of Death's staff. Staff embedded with sullied amber, said to be the very part of the Prince of Death, enhances death sorceries. One of the staves deemed heretical by the Academy for its ability to allow sorceries to be augmented through fate in addition to intelligence. This one too I had to go back to past episodes to look at. The Curse Mark of Death. Curse mark carved into the discarded flesh of Ranni the Witch, also known as the half-wheel wound of the centipede. This curse mark was carved at the moment of the death of the first demigod, and should have taken the shape of a circle. However, 2 demigods perished at the same time, breaking the curse mark into 2 half-wheels. Ranni was the first of the demigods whose flesh perished, while the Prince of Death perished in soul alone. The Golden Order wants to lock death away, but it's almost like death needs somewhere to go. And we'll get into that more when I discuss the colossal stone coffins, but I see a connection here to the golems because, as indicated by the visage, they too lock away death by eliminating it in flames. By wiping both the body and the soul away, there's no longer any physical evidence of life and therefore death. So I think the Furnace Golems are part of Messmer's army, not only because of their association with fire, but also because they haunt the Haunset, who are the people Marika sent Messmer to kill. I think the hefty furnace pot strongly implies that Marika saw the Haunset as an impurity that needed cleansing. Now that I'm thinking more about it, Fell God could mean Messmer, as in fallen god because he was sent to go against the people of the Shadow Realm. Plus, furnace pots are crafted using the embers of Mesmer. Next, I will talk about grave birds, and also deathrite birds, because I see similarities between the two. To me, grave birds are the smaller but more numerous equivalent to the deathrite birds from the lands between. And I'm starting to think that maybe Marika didn't create both realms, but instead modeled the lands between from the realm of shadow, prior to it being cast into darkness. From the furnace golems, the cycle of death passes to the grave birds, creatures of organic decay. They perch crowning the nameless mausoleums and the graveyards of the Shadow Realm. And like the deathrite birds, their bodies are skeletal, further representing the death they guard over. Explosive ghost flame, sorcery of the servants of death. Strike the ground with the staff, triggering an explosion of ghost flame that burns the surrounding area. In the time when there was no Erdtree, death was burned in ghost flame. Death birds were the keepers of that fire. This indicates that the birds were essentially the keepers of death, kind of like carrion birds, like vultures that pick at the bones of dead things. The death ritual spear. The ritual spear used by priests of old who were permitted to come among the death birds. The priests became guardians of the birds through the rite of death, which also serves as an oath sworn to their distant resurrection. Twin bird kite shield. Shield featuring a vividly painted twin bird. The twin bird is said to be the envoy of an outer god and the mother of the death birds. So the death birds come from an outer god. It sounds like death is part of a journey to distant resurrection. What's interesting is that death journeys to the Shadow Realm, which we learn from the Suppressant Pillar. But the furnace golems burn away body and soul, souls that are usually eternal, and the Shadow Realm uses spirit in ashes to empower, so the grave birds might be consuming the flesh of the dead, or at least burning it in ghost flame. So now I'm wondering if Marika wanted destined death gone, not only so her children could be immortal, but also so people could not make the journey through death and discover what she had done to the realm of shadow. Or maybe, hold on y'all, I'm remembering something and there's an item I want to read first before I say anything. Castle Cross message. This is a message that was given to me by Lita. Kind Miquella seeks the tower sealed by shadow and the gate of divinity found there.
A full picture is yet to coalesce, but we do know that he is bound for the Tower of Shadow, and that is where he intends to rise to true godhood. The Tower of Shadow houses a divine gateway. A well-kept secret it was, but the gateway was once the birthplace of a god we know all too well.
Miquella, stop. Don't turn the poor thing into a god.
So that's how she became a god. It answers a question I've been having for a while. Marika wasn't born a god, she was made one. So that must be why Miquella is seeking the gates of divinity, so he can reach full godhood too. Oh, but that means, y'all, this is going beyond this footnote, but I promise that I'll talk about this more in a full episode, or maybe another footnote. I am excited about it though. We're just gonna table it for now. The Gravebird armor and also the anklets have a similar description. Stone armor with a twinge of green, one of a set of armor pieces cast in the image of a gravebird. Gravebirds are ancient golems created to guard the spirit graves built where all manners of death ultimately drift. In the Shadow Realm, it seems that death needs to be guarded, either because the Haunset honor the dead or because Marika sought to suppress every remnant of death. I do wonder if gravebirds, like vultures, consume the dead, which would be a very natural and repetitive process. Death Lightning, an incantation that channels the power of the ancient dragon Fortisax, now corrupted by death. Strikes with a storm of death lightning, inflicts death blight upon foes. It is said that this golden lightning was wielded by Godwyn, who befriended Fortisax. Remembrance of the Lynch Dragon. After Godwyn the Golden became the Prince of Death, the ancient dragon fought long and hard against death within its companion. Alas, victory was never achieved, and its only reward was corruption. Fia's Mist, sorcery of Fia, the deathbed companion, creates a deadly mist before the caster, which inflicts deathblight upon all those who enter. This sorcery was developed to oppose the Round Table hold and is effective only against the Tarnished. The Mending Rune of the Death Prince, rune gestated by Fia, the deathbed companion, used to restore the fractured Elden Ring when brandished by the Elden Lord. Formed of 2 Holobrand half-wheels combined, it will embed the principle of life within death into order. The Golden Order was created by confining destined death. Thus, this new order will be one of death restored. Fia is one of the more notable figures who sought to re-establish destined death. As a deathbed companion, I think she saw the beauty in it and the need for it. Like in the Realm of Shadow, she embraced it. I wonder what she would have thought of the Shadow Realm. Finally comes the divine decay, embodied in the stone coffins of the Cerulean coast. Here, beneath the open sky, thousands of bodies lie entombed in marble artifices. At first I thought looked like buildings, but also look a bit like ships. It brings to mind the ferrymen of death in mythology who would ferry souls to the underworld. And so each coffin looks like a ship, awaiting a tide that never comes. Unlike the image of cleansing fire or carrion birds tearing at flesh, the coffins rest quietly on the beach, a peaceful and beautiful image. That's what first struck me about the Cerulean coast. It is one of the most beautiful places in Elden Ring, and this is where death washes up, where it completes a sort of pilgrimage. Mass of putrescence, sorcery originating from the putrid liquor of the stone coffins, flings a mass of putrescence that bathes its landing area in ghost flame. In an age-long past, death was burned by ghost flame. Even the remnants of tainted flesh were given equal treatment in death. Vortex of putrescence, sorcery used by the putrescent knight, launches a whirl of putrescent jets that bathe the surrounding of all they touch in ghost flame. In an age-long past, death was burned by ghost flame. Even the remains of tainted flesh were given equal treatment in death. The grave birds, and certainly the deathrite birds, have ghost flame. But the ways that furnace golems and grave birds handle death feels more active. When I think of the stone coffins, I think of like a form of surrender. Putrescence is like the liquefaction of flesh, and it feels very final. The ultimate decomposition, like it could just melt back into the earth. It's no longer about judgment or reverence. It's this loss of individuality in mass graves, full of what's no longer even individual bodies, but liquefied flesh. Congealed putrescence, bruise-colored putrescence that oozes from stone coffins, congealed into a large, viscous lump. Found underground in the land to where stone coffins drift, the putrescence is what remains of the impure lives kept within the stone coffins. I also wanted to reread the description of the Cerulean Coast map. A captivating vista of brilliant blue flowers intermingled with colossal stone coffins of unknown origin that seemingly drifted to this place. It's interesting that the coffins gather along the coast. Both the mass of blue flowers and the sea could symbolize the ultimate unity of all souls. Freed from suppression and sanctity, the dead here are congealed into something that's no longer flesh and bone. They're free of individuality, but they're also free of judgment, ready only to return to the earth. Remembrance of the putrescent knight, hewn into the Erdtree. All tainted flesh eventually becomes putrescence, and this clump of it imbibed St. Trina's nectar, which granted it eternal rest. And so it was that putrescence became her knight. We also have his cleaver, weapon wielded by the putrescent knight, a great cleaver of hardened putrescence affixed to an arch fashioned from human bones. St. Trina was the subject of the first Footnote video, but I think with the new information that we learned about her, this is worth talking about. St. Trina's sleep is a sleep of death. Beneath the Cerulean coast, St. Trina is there lulling all into a deep and peaceful sleep, unbothered by life's obligations. The putrescent night is sleep become death, but St. Trina's death is dreamlike and compassionate. The spirit gravestone, a piece of gravestone that started to turn into a spirit. In places where the dead have been brought since antiquity, the oldest gravestones turn into spirits and then fade away. It feels like a sort of final metamorphosis, from matter to spirit to nothing. There's no more material residue to be burned or consumed. And death is a fading from memory. As more people who knew and loved us died, we, in a sense, disappear. Unless we were like some famous historical figure. Royal remains, armor graced with gold human bones. It is said that the bones belong to an ancient lord, the soulless king, the lord of the lost and desperate, who was known as Ensha. The Golden Epitaph, a sword made to commemorate the death of Godwyn the Golden, first of the demigods to die, infused with the humble prayer of a young boy. Oh brother, Lord brother, please die a true death. I feel like that must have been Miquella. It's almost like there's an attempt to humanize death again. The royal remains wore their bones as regalia, and kind of accepted mortality through that. And Miquella is clearly interested in the concept of true death, so it makes sense that he would go where all forms of death drift, and he chose to abandon St. Trina where the most final form of death gathers. A thought came to me while I was filming this, and I just wanted to say it. I was reflecting on the location of the Realm of Shadow relative to the lands between. What if the Shadow Tree is the roots of the Erdtree? Not new land, but the underside of the old one? That would make it literally a grave. What if it's the place where every secret Marika buried took root? I have wondered if Godwyn's soul wandered here to the one place where death could finally recognize itself. Like Miquella hoped that his brother could achieve a true death, but maybe that's just wishful thinking. At the center of it all stands the Shadow Tree, the mirror of the Erdtree. Its branches twist, and its shrouds block the sun, while the Erdtree grows in brilliance. Perhaps they are two halves of a balance, the golden half that denies death, and the dark half that accepts it. Death themes dominate Elden Ring. The Golden Order sought to conquer it, Messma sought to weaponize it, and the Hornset sought to worship it. But in the end, death belongs to none of them. The mechanical, organic, and divine all converge in the figure of the Tarnished, a being who walks freely between death and life. By facing golems, passing beneath Gravebird's watch, and walking among the coffins of the Cerulean coast, the Tarnished retraces the entire history of the world's decay. The Shadow Realm is a place where every soul burned, buried, or broken by divine order finds its final form. The golems burn, the Gravebirds feast, the coffins rest. And in their silence, the shadow breathes. Maybe that's the point. Death is not the opposite of life, but the shadow it casts, inseparable and inevitable. And perhaps in the end, the Tarnished isn't meant to end this cycle or master it, but to witness it, to walk through the ruins of what the gods tried to hide and see them for what they are, frightened beings trying to escape, conquer, and manipulate death. Thank you so much for watching the second footnote, and if you liked the video, don't be afraid to subscribe. Bye, y'all.